Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian podcast by Joyeeta Basu. Viewers, do you know the Jaish-e-Mohammed, one of the deadliest terrorist organizations that carried out the parliament attack, the hijacking of the IC-814 and the Pulwama attack? Do you know that organization has now infiltrated Bangladesh? So what exactly is going on in our neighborhood? And of course, in the context of, say, for example, what we are witnessing, some kind of a skirmish or a war, if we can use that term, has broken out between, say, Pakistan and Taliban. And it seems a lot of terrorist groups are also involved in this. What exactly is going on in our neighborhood? To discuss this and more, I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Abhinav Pandya, who is founder and CEO of Yojanas Foundation, an Udaipur-based foreign policy think tank. Now, he has written 3 books on terrorism. Now, one has been on terror financing in Kashmir, one is on radicalization in India, and his third and recent book is actually on Jaish-e-Mohammed. Now, it is called The Inside the Terrifying World of Jaish-e-Mohammed. It has been published by HarperCollins. And of course, I was just talking to Abhinav a short while back. He was talking about also Turkey's role in the terrorism in India and IPF and all. So I'm certain we are going to learn a lot of things from him. Welcome, Abhinav, to the show.
Thank you very much, Joyeeta ji. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So tell me, what exactly your book is about in a nutshell, and then we talk about the Jaish and what exactly is going on in Bangladesh.
So I'll just start with my book initially. So my book is like a complete profile of Jaish-e-Mohammed. And the reason why I started writing this book was very special because I was studying since I was researching in Kashmir. I was also advising the Honorable Governor of Jammu and Kashmir in an official capacity in those days. And I found that many researchers and experts have written books on the other 2 groups, that is Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hizbul Mujahideen has been widely covered in the local and the national news. Christine Fair wrote an excellent book on Lashkar-e-Taiba because they was responsible for the 26/11 attacks and in which many Westerners died. But Jaish-e-Mohammed remained elusive. Now, Jaish-e-Mohammed happens to be the most deadly and lethal organization as far as India's security interests are concerned. Initially, its founder and like the father figure of Jaish-e-Mohammed, Mr. Masood Azhar, he came to India in 93, 94 and as a member of the Harkatul Mujahideen. He was arrested. Later, that IC-814 hijacking drama was orchestrated by Harkatul Mujahideen. And after that, he was released because the plane was hijacked and the government had to release him. After that, he started Jaish. So that episode brought a major embarrassment to India on an international scale. After that, they orchestrated the first Fidain attack using the local homegrown Kashmiri suicide bomber in Jammu and Kashmir. That Fidain was outside the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. Then they orchestrated the parliament attack, which brought India and Pakistan almost on the verge of war. After that, most recently staged that Pulwama attack, which again brought India and Pakistan on the verge of a full-fledged conventional war. So that is an organization which has been very deadly to our interest, but unfortunately, it evaded the attention and the gaze of the security experts. Maybe we can call that the skill or the tradecraft of the organization, that it could successfully evade the scrutiny of the counterterrorism experts.
How is it? How is it possible? Because what you're talking about, we have been talking about Lashkar and not Jaish that much. But Jaish is very much active. What is their status right now in the India-Pak situation? And of course, now you're talking about Bangladesh. Yes. What is going on over there?
So I must say that, Jaish is a much more stable, much more lethal, and a very, powerful, influential organization, a concrete organization, I must say. Let us go back a bit, into the history of Jaish-e-Mohammed. So as far as Lashkar-e-Taiba is concerned, it's a more recent organization, very recent organization. And since Lashkar follows that Wahhabi Ahle Hadith ideology, which has just about 4%, followers in the entire Pakistan, or let's say in South Asia also. And Lashkar is a pet boy of ISI. Lashkar is like under the complete control of ISI. That's why we call it soldiers without uniform. But on the other hand, Jaish, happens to be much older than and much powerful than ISI or Pakistan, because don't go by the name Jaish-e-Mohammed. Originally, it's a Deobandi terrorist organization, and Deobandi extremism in Pakistan or in the entire South Asia has a history of about 150 odd years. So in Pakistan, right immediately after the independence of Pakistan in 1950s, only Deobandi extremists started that Khatm-e-Nabuwat movement. They were calling, they wanted to declare Ahmadiyas as non-Muslims. Later in 1979, Huji, the first Deobandi terrorist organization, was formed. Then we come across, Sipai-e-Sahaba, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi. These are all Deobandi terror groups. Jaish happens to be the most recent and the newest Deobandi terror group. But then it has a very strong roots in that Deobandi history of extremism, and all the other organizations like Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, Sipai-e-Sahaba, they are sister organizations. HUM is like a parental organization of Jaish. So that way, Jaish is very powerful, and it has that capacity and also that audacity to go beyond and even defy the ISI's diktats. So that's as far as Jaish's position and influence in Pakistan is concerned. It was a strong organization. It is still a very strong organization, and its connections with the transnational terror outfits like Taliban and Al Qaeda make it even more dangerous and lethal organization. Well, we are definitely going to talk more about these different aspects of Jaish. But before that, let me just mention that even in Bangladesh, Jaish has a very robust penetration.
For how long?
This is not new. This was existing long back. So this Huji Bangladesh is called. So that's an organization which is basically an affiliate of the original Huji, Harkatul Jihad al-Islami, which was formed in 1979. That's the first Deobandi terrorist group, which was created by ISI, and the Americans supported it to counter the Soviets in Afghanistan. Maulana Fazlur Rahman Khalil, all these old guards, they were very active in Huji, and Huji Bangladesh is like an affiliate of that. Now, interestingly, when Bangladesh had that Zia government, and the BNP government in those days from 1995 to 2006, Bangladesh had become more or less a very strong hotbed of ISI's activities. And you will be surprised to know that Maulana Masood Azhar infiltrated into India via Bangladesh.
Okay.
Sajjad Afghani, the first commander of Harkatul Mujahideen, he infiltrated to India via Bangladesh. So that was a very significant route, a major infiltration route, which was used by these hardcore terrorists to enter into India. Later, even the IC-814 hijackers, had their roots in Bangladesh. I mean, the Bangladesh was used. Even the 2611, had that linkages with the Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is like a very strong hotbed of these, the terrorist and extremist groups. And when Rohingya started, settling with that illegal immigration in the Chittagong region, these groups like Jaish and Lashkar, they were openly, proselytizing and disseminating their poisonous ideology among the Rohingyas. And Bangladesh has that Jamaat-e-Islami, which again is a very radical Islamist organization with very deep-rooted and robust connections to Pakistan-based terrorist groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba.
So in Bangladesh, we have Bangladesh's Jamaat, we have Jaish, we have Lashkar,
yes,
we have Rohingyas.
Yes.
What
Ansarullah
exactly
Bangla,
Ansarullah
which is the South Asian affiliate of Al Qaeda.
Okay.
Yeah. And you remember the Gulshan Bakery episode,
Yes,
that
2016
Islamic State, so
yes, all those well-educated rich boys, they came and murdered those 20
and one more
people.
thing, and while we analyze all these things, we should never forget the fact that Bangladesh is the place where the original Muslim League was founded back in 1905. And people like Khaliq-uz-Zama, Aga Khan, Nizamul Mulk, they were the part of the landed aristocracy and Muslim elites who started this Muslim League movement. Even in the Direct Action Day, there were prominent, powerful Bangladeshi Muslim leaders. They were involved in that, including Mujibur Rahman. He was working with Sohrawardi.
So, I mean, this is a scary picture, and given what is happening in Bangladesh right now, and the Bangladesh-India relationship, the major troubles in it, what exactly do you foresee in the future? What is going to happen, do you think?
I mean, what's happening in Bangladesh, this was always, it was a long overdue. I'm not at all surprised with what's happening in Bangladesh, So basically, I think we should look at it in a larger perspective. Countries where you have a very overwhelming majority of Muslim population, like Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, and a very significant, sizable, and a powerful presence of Islamist extremists. That includes the clerics also. That includes the terror groups also, the extremist groups also, like Muslim Brotherhood, Jamaat-e-Islami. There, it's very difficult and challenging to sustain democracy in the long run. Ultimately, after some time, with after all these failed experiments with democracy, people under the leadership of Islamic extremists, they rise up in revolt and they uproot the whole system. It has already happened in Syria, it has already happened in Yemen, it has happened in Iran. Pakistan is almost witnessing that kind of revolt, like in these days. In the past also it happened. And Bangladesh, the last, I would say, straw to break the camel's back was the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. She was the last one who stood as a guard or as a fortress between the democracy and the complete overthrowing by the Islamic extremists. Now, after her ouster, what I see in Bangladesh is the increasing and expanding presence of various Islamic extremists and extremist groups like Jamaat-e-Islami, Ansarullah Bangla, Al-Qaeda in Indian subcontinent, Pakistani groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, ISI will be very active. Besides that, with the, very, I would say, very crucial and a very violent interplay of all these extremist groups, transnational terror groups like ISKP will also be very active in that region. And that is going to be a major security headache for India. People will be radicalized on a massive scale. Now, see, in Bangladesh, when today we see that the minority is being persecuted by the Islamic extremists, we must not forget the fact that it's not just the terrorist or terrorist commanders sent by Pakistan who are perpetrating those atrocities. Even the common people, the ordinary people, they are involved and they buy that idea, they adhere to that ideology, they worship these Islamic extremist groups as their heroes and their ideals. So, the stage is all set, and Bangladesh is already on the way to becoming new Syria or Afghanistan. So where you see all kinds of global terror groups active, they can find they can get access to all kinds of weapons, even some dirty radioactive technologies, and that is going to be a major security headache for India.
I mean, you foresee it as Syria and Afghanistan. That is
Yeah,
beyond scary.
it is a process. I mean, it's just a matter of time. Okay, so now we already see these things unfolding in Bangladesh. If you look at the developments which have happened over the last few months after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, they have made it very easy for Pakistanis to get the visa. So Pakistan and they have instructed to facilitate and make it very smooth for Pakistanis to get entry into Bangladesh. So Pakistan can send all kinds of jihadist commanders to Bangladesh. Then, the training exchange programs have started. Leader of the Ansarullah Bangla, the man, that Jashimuddin Rahmani, the fellow who was convicted for the murder of a secular blogger, he has been released by the government, and that fellow has already, urged Mamata Banerjee to revolt against India. He has openly supported the freedom of Kashmir, freedom of Khalistan, and the freedom of the Northeast. So it is already on that way, and I'm sure, when I say this, that it is on the way to become another Syria or Afghanistan. Many people, particularly the experts here, the in Indian strategic community, they will disagree with me that it cannot be like that. This is more of an exaggeration. Well, that is because they tend to see the Muslim masses in India and the Islamic groups in India through a different lens. They feel that the culture of the subcontinent is different, which is fine. I agree with them. It is different from what happens in the Arab world or in Afghanistan. But ultimately, see, if it's all about the extremist narrative, then that the playbook which has repeated, which was executed in Syria or in Afghanistan, that will be paramount. And these groups, they will take inspiration, they will take a cue from what happened in those regions, and also the narratives which presided over the complete Islamist takeover in countries like Afghanistan and all. They will be paramount in Afghanistan, in Bangladesh also. So the narrative, the basic ideology of extremism, the ideology of jihad will ultimately drive the changes and the political shift in Bangladesh.
Yeah, so you see, so what does it mean for particularly the states bordering Bangladesh? And say, for example, West Bengal. How would you say, what is the extent of radicalization in Bangladesh, in West Bengal, particularly in the border districts?
West Bengal.
What is the information that you are getting?
Well, my basically, well, my focus has mostly been on Kashmir, but still I've kept a track of Bengal and West Bengal and Bangladesh. I mean, I'm not an expert in these areas, but still, with whatever inputs that I have got so far, well, I must say that the radicalization situation in West Bengal is very bad. I mean, it's almost like, I must say that they're going to get very, very powerful in political terms, in the social terms, in cultural terms, and there's a lot of infiltration, particularly in the border areas. I mean, yesterday there was a news that you can buy a Bangladeshi SIM very cheap. So the movement is very easy, and you can, with that you can funnel all the weaponry and everything. In fact, there was another input which appeared in the open domain also a few days back, that one prominent leader, husband of one prominent leader of TMC, he was accused, or he was involved in illegally smuggling a radioactive substance, californium or something. Okay,
Yes.
so these all things, they speak, they are the indicators of what's happening underground, the kind of persecution which is happening in Bangladesh, and the kind of that extremist narrative which is unfolding in Bangladesh, that is well known to everyone. And I must say that even Turkey has a very strong
Yeah, that is what,
penetration.
in
I mean,
fact.
no, I mean, in the
Yeah,
last
please.
elections, there were elements based in Turkey, and via Qatar, they were interfering in Bangladesh, and there was a big, massive rally. I have written about that in my article, which was published by Areds, and in which how the Turkish Maulanas and the religious extremists operating from that part of the world, they were actively involved with the extremist and Islamist, elements in West Bengal. Now, these West Bengal and Bangladesh are contiguous to each other, so I mean that's seen more or less as one major Islamic bloc. So these borders are quite porous, as we all know, in certain areas, because of the natural terrain and the difficulties associated with that. It's very difficult to completely control this your infiltration. And if situation in Bangladesh becomes more chaotic, with this complete anarchy and the elements ruling like feudal lords or the Islamist, I would say, groups, then in that case there will be more infiltration in West Bengal. And then many of the on Bangladeshi TV channels, you can openly hear things that I mean, the Siliguri corridor has to be disturbed. And in the Siliguri corridor also, if you see that a lot of Islamic extremist elements, they've been deliberately settled in that region with very insidious and very, I would say, dangerous aims, to sabotage India's national security. Besides that, in the past, we have seen that the very northeastern insurgent groups like Ulfa and all, they found safe havens in Bangladesh, and then you have many much bigger international players also involved. Like when Sheikh Hasina was ousted, she specifically mentioned that one big country wanted a particular island, and they were involved with the Jamaat-e Islami elements, and how they were able to put their people in power. In fact, the Muhammad Yunus, he represents a certain ideology, a certain interest group, So, and they have a major interest in sabotaging the situation in India's northeast also. So that way, it's going to be a very troublesome, very volatile area. And then also, when you see the whole situation, it can be viewed in the larger context of what's unfolding in Myanmar also.
Now, the thing is, you see, when you're talking about this, before we go talk about Kashmir and the terror situation there, the thing is that when you're talking about the involvement, I mean, of course, you see the problem, didn't the US see it, or is it that what we have known about, the influence of organizations like basically front organizations of Muslim Brotherhood and all, they have such a hold on, particularly on the Biden administration. Is that the reason why we see the rise of this Yunus and company, who are basically fronting, as you said, certain vested interests, and including, I would say, Islamist groups?
Well, that's again a very big,
I
issue and a
know, I
topic,
know.
but I'll just briefly, because otherwise we'll start digressing from the
Ha,
main
ha,
topic.
ha.
In US, policy making circuit, I think at a very fundamental level, they have this, very firm belief. I mean, they actually believe that, that they have to promote democracy, and, I mean, they have this major, issues with human rights situation and everything. If you look at the US history also, there is one segment who genuinely believes that human rights, democracy, freedom of expression should prevail. But then, once again, like, okay, in practical terms, these idealistic things don't work, and various interest groups, your weapon lobbies, your deep state, your intelligence, bodies, they come into play, and they try to propagate, they try to implement their own agenda through these various narratives. Now, being a democratic country, an open country where lobbyism is very openly allowed, all these Islamist big groups like Muslim Brotherhood, they have actually become very powerful. If you look at the DC think tanks and the kind of penetration which these extremist elements have there, through money or through political influencing and all, so that actually influences the major leadership in the Democrats, and for very obvious electoral political reasons, and that influences the policy. So these people like and you can see that in the US, there are various groups like CAIR and that ICNA and all, where even prominent members of the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, they are working as active members over there, and these bodies got a huge amount of aid from the government, and I guess, if you, even the American institutions like Memory and Middle East Forum, they have done an excellent work on how these Islamic charities like ICNA and this ICNN, Kashmir American Council, Kashmir Canadian Council, how they have penetrated the state institutions and how they continue to have very robust and strong relationship with the extremist and terrorist groups like Muslim Brotherhood, Khidmat Foundation, Lashkar. So these things are very, it's a very intricate and a very complex network, and they do influence American policies, and they have tried to, in the recent case, I must say that Americans have made a very bad judgment, and if they think that by removing Sheikh Hasina, they removed a dictator, then I must say that they will realize that in the long run they have brought the monsters like Jamaat-e-Islami, who believe in a very totalitarian and a very predatory ideology of Islamic extremism and a Sharia rule. So that will be a big headache in the future.
Okay, Abhinav, you have worked extensively in Kashmir, including with the Lieutenant Governor, as you mentioned. So what exactly is this terror situation there? Is it homegrown? Is it being pushed by Pakistan? Would you say it has subsided? What is going on in Kashmir right now?
So yes, I must say that before 370, again, just allow me to give a brief historical background. So Pakistan always knew that Kashmir is a very different place. Kashmiri Islam is very different. Kashmiri Islam had influences of Shaivism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and they knew that the people here, they don't have that Taliban-like temperament. So if they had to sustain militancy, terrorism in Kashmir over the long run, they will have to work on two factors, on two fronts. First one is radicalization and promoting extremism, for which they created organizations like Jamaat-e-Islami and various terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, who adhere to various, Islamic schools, so that you create, different terror groups for different kinds of, constituencies. Suppose if there is a Kashmiri who wants to join a Deobandi terror group, you have a Jaish-e-Mohammed, you have a Harkatul Mujahideen. Suppose some Kashmiri wants to join Ahle Hadith or Wahhabi terrorist group, you have Lashkar-e-Taiba. Suppose someone follows Maulana Maududi's ideology, then that person has a choice of joining Hizbul Mujahideen. So they created these groups, and also a team of clerics. And the second point was, second factor front was working on the terror financing. Create such a complex financial system in Kashmir where you develop stakes for a common Kashmiri, in the terrorism ecosystem. So they created that very complex ecosystem. Now to break that, Government of India abrogated Article 370, and that was a very fine, a brilliant step by Modi government, I must say. A very classic strategic step in completely, breaking the backbone of terrorism. I think it must be studied as a case study in the future. It will be studied as a case study in the future. But after 370, a few things have happened. The militancy, this ecosystem of militancy, terror funding, it has shattered, it has got a major damage, so that's why stone pelting has stopped. But then Pakistan always improvises, it always innovates. For about almost 2 years, because of the crackdown on the communications and the massive crackdown by the NIA, their ecosystem, their masterminds were in a complete state of shock. But then they started improvising. Now you will not see stone pelting or very public expression of disgruntlement, because there's a very strong security control from the central government, and secondly, Pakistan doesn't want it that way. Now they are sending completely foreign terrorists to Kashmir. Previously they were mostly recruiting the homegrown, the local militants. Okay, but now their focus is to send those Afghan war veterans, the hardcore mujahideens into terrorists into Kashmir, and many of them are very well trained, very using highly sophisticated weaponry, including M4 assault rifles and those with excellent high quality night vision devices, Zigana pistols, and all that high quality weaponry which was left by NATO is being used by these militants who are coming to Kashmir. So now the focus is on sending the foreign terrorists. They are sending groups, and they have already done massive infiltration in Kashmir, and they are focusing on very pinpointed and precise attacks. As of now, I feel that they are avoiding a direct contact, but and they are planning for something big, something really big, because they are highly trained. So a few encounters which have taken place, in that you'll find that they could really take a headshot, and they could inflict a lot of casualties, a lot of damage on our security forces. So that's one major factor with the current situation in Kashmir. Secondly, we are really lacking in terms of the human intelligence, because after 2014 we got that really amazing tech and capabilities from Israel because of this very robust counterterrorism cooperation. But that also, I mean, that was very successful for quite some time. The security forces could neutralize a large number of terrorist cadres, and during the Article 370 abrogation phase, they could completely suspend the communication. But after that, Pakistanis have completely improvised. Now they have minimized the use of technical gadgets and all. Whatever they are using, that they have not been deciphered yet. They are using ultrasets, which is the Chinese technology, and they have not been yet deciphered by the Indian agencies. Besides that, they have changed the modus operandi of this terrorism, so they're not making a lot of communication on these gadgets and devices. So that part could not be compensated well, because we have a bad human situation right now. So that's why we're not getting enough intelligence. But yes, I must say that lot of there's a lot of I would say amassing of terrorist cadres from Pakistan. They are concentrating in different parts of Kashmir. They are infiltrating from Samba Kathua region, from this Jammu region. They are infiltrating from the Kashmir region, and they are present. But yes, we don't have enough human. And as far as the public sentiment is concerned, well, I would like to mention that there is not enough I would say expression of resentment in terms of protest and stone pelting, but that deep down at the grassroots level, there is a major resentment and feeling of frustration, anger, disgruntlement. I mean, that persists because of various reasons. First of all, the abrogation of Article 370. Secondly, they feel that the local political parties were totally absent, and it was a governor rule. So generally, mostly the bureaucracy dominating the situation. Though the common people could not make enough access into the power corridors. But that is not a very strong reason. The most powerful reason that makes this resentment very poisonous and very deep rooted is the high scale of radicalization of the ordinary Muslim masses in Kashmir. Religious radicalization is very extreme. I mean, that's like you can imagine the situation that when Taliban finds victory in Afghanistan, or when Al Qaeda affiliates like meet success in places like Syria, that makes a huge impact in Kashmir, and people are really inspired by that. So over the last 30 years or 3 or 4 decades of militancy terrorism in Kashmir, the biggest damage that has happened is the extreme religious radicalization of ordinary Kashmiris.
So when you are talking about, this Taliban and all, what do they feel when, say, for example, now Taliban and Pakistan are fighting? What exactly is going on that front?
That's again a very interesting
Yeah,
question.
I know,
Well,
I mean, there's just, I think 2021 was it, when the Taliban came to power and Pakistan was helping them, and their intelligence chief was going and talking to the Haqqanis and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And suddenly they are at each other's throat. What exactly has gone wrong over there? What is going on over there?
I think we need to understand the Islamic theological system, in order to explore these things. Well, it must be kept in mind that at a very fundamental level, Islam offers an alternate system for everything, for your personal life, for your social life, for your cultural life, and for running the government, for running the police, for running the judiciary, for running your military. So there is a direct competition between Islam and your secular institutions of government. like your democratic government, your parliamentary assemblies, your military and all. So whenever these institutions, whenever they weaken or whenever they decline, the Islamic elements or the extremist elements, they become more and more powerful. Now in Pakistani army has been like very powerful for the last 75 odd years, I mean, even right after their independence, and they have been using these terrorist actors as their strategic assets. But then it was bound to happen in the long run, I mean, there's a very strong competition to become more and more fanatic and religious, and there comes a time, there comes a stage where the interest of the state and the interest of the religious extremists, they clash with each other. So in Pakistan case, that happened during Musharraf's time, when Musharraf made a U-turn and he started supporting the Americans, against the Talibs, when most of these terrorists like Jaish-e-Mohammed and they got very angry, and I mean, this whole TTP business came out from that. And if you remember, there were
Taliban, Pakistan.
there were 4 attempts on on Parvez Musharraf's life, and even Masood Azhar was accused of hatching that conspiracy, and he openly said that, well, ISI in Pakistan may have a political motivation, but our goal, our aim is totally religious. So that's what is unfolding in Pakistan. This Tehreek-e-Taliban, it's again a hardcore Deobandi extremist religious group, and it includes a lot of those cadres who were earlier with Jaish-e-Mohammed, and then they basically went against Jaish-e-Mohammed when Musharraf made a U-turn, and then they just they kind of went out of that organization, and they started the war against the Pakistani state. Now these cadres and these commanders, they have kinship ties with the Taliban again is it's a Deobandi terror outfit, and if you look at the genesis, you'll find all these big commanders like Mullah Omar, Maulana Masood Azhar, Fazlur Rahman Kharir, they are all the product of the same institution, Madrasa Binoria in Karachi. So these are old connections,
and they are actually affiliated to the Deobandis.
Yes, Deoband. And now see,
which
Taliban
is in India, of course.
Yes, but now Deoband originated in India, but currently in the Deoband India says that, well, we have dissociated from the Deoband Pakistan. But even then, I mean, see, politically they may say that, but as far as the principles are concerned, the religious doctrines are concerned, I think it's the same. And at a very fundamental level, at a doctrinal level, the ties are strong. One has to explore that. But in Pakistan, the Taliban, first of all, between TTP and Taliban, they are kinship ties, they operate in that border region. Okay, they are clan-based ties. Once again, that's a tribal area, where the tribes dominate. So these ties are very important. Secondly, they are very strong religious, linkages. The same Deobandi extremist ideology, and Taliban again has a very strong focus on promoting the cause of Islam. Now, Pakistan, its army, okay, it's seen by TTP as a heretical army, as some kind of an army which is very anti-Islamic in nature. They don't follow the religious principles in letter and spirit. So this was supposed, I mean, this was bound to happen. Okay, now since Taliban is in power, they have got the TTP has got safe havens in Taliban. They have all that logistical support, so they will start attacking them, and in Pakistan, in various parts, these various extremist groups, they will rear their head and they will weaken the Pakistani state.
So, do you think Pakistan is likely to implode sooner than later, or later at least?
Later, yeah, it will implode. Yeah, that's very logical. See, I mean, there's no imagination or exaggeration about it. See, if you have Balochistan boiling with all this Balochistan Liberation Army, orchestrating attacks every day. Sindh is also always mostly restive. Your common population of Pakistan staging a big, I would say, a protest drama every day. Waziristan and that frontier provinces, they are always on the boil, always in some kind of a turmoil. How long will Pakistan sustain? Ultimately, I mean, these terrorist groups, they have major cadre strength. Lashkar-e-Taiba, they have people like who are well trained in the range of lakhs, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs. And they have access to the opium fields of Afghanistan. They have access to the badlands of Afghanistan, Syria. They can get all kinds of weapons. So ultimately, for Pakistani army, it will be difficult to control. Pakistan is in a very bad economic situation, and even within the Pakistani army, we must understand that there is a very big segment of radicalized, individuals. Deobandi extremists hold a very important place in Pakistani army. So And in Pakistani army also, we have seen factions recently. In Imran Khan's case, there was a huge group of Pakistani army officers who were supporting Imran Khan. No? So Pakistan is in a bad shape. I mean, as a state, as a secular political state, it has a bad future. But as a Islamic extremist state, it has a bright future. And again, that's going to be a very bad situation for us.
Yep.
Because you, on one hand, you have Bangladesh, which is going that way. On the other hand, you have Pakistan, which is going that way. And in India, radicalization levels are peaking, with every passing day. You have groups like PFI, you have groups like Jamaat-e-Islami. Communal polarization is increasing even among the common people. The kind of protest which we see against things like CA, NRC, or WAQF and all, they are not just ordinary communal riots. The communal riots happened earlier also, but now what's happening, what's unfolding in India, it has a very different mindset. It has a mindset that the Muslims have to consolidate along a religious line. Secondly, what Israel is doing, that's seen in a very bad light by these people, and they feel that India is a friend of Israel. So again, this consolidation is happening, and the present day, I would say, religious or extremist Muslim in India, it has a much favorable, I would say, ecosystem, because first of all, you have extremist groups. Secondly, you have favorable political, social, and cultural conditions, which can facilitate their radicalization. They have the ready material to justify and legitimize their radicalization. Thirdly, all the international developments also facilitate their radicalization, like victories of Taliban and Al Qaeda in Syria, also the defeat of Hamas and Hezbollah at the hand of Israelis. So with these things, you can always push the narrative of Islam in danger. And with victories like Taliban and Syria, you can push the narrative that if they can do it there, we can do the same thing here. So, and besides that, due to social media and much enhanced connectivity, the ordinary Muslim here is much stronger or much more connected with the global Islamist movements.
So, but at the same time, when you're looking at the current geopolitical situation, the Taliban in particular is trying to establish good relations with India. Isn't that ironic?
I see these things as very tactical. I would say the Taliban is trying to establish good relationship with India. Definitely, if I look at these things from a purely from a diplomatic point of view, which any diplomat or maybe let's say a security professional, someone who is working in intelligence would say, he will see it as some kind of a breakthrough. For me, it is a good development. Well, they are diversifying, but it is not a breakthrough. It is very tactical. Ultimately, for Taliban, I mean, the principles which they are adhering to, the ideology which they subscribe to, we have to look at that. Look at what India had excellent relationship with the Palestinian, authority in the past, and India supported the cause of Palestine. But you go and talk to Hamas, do they support India or on the issue of Kashmir, or one of the Hamas leader were addressing the gathering of PFI in Kerala. Ultimately, it's the ideology.
So now this PFI, you keep mentioning the PFI, and you talked about Turkey. How active is Turkey in radicalizing Muslims over here in India, and how involved are they in these terror groups?
So Turkey,
because Erdogan has this,
yes.
this pan
Turkey,
Islamic kind of thing, with Ottoman revival of the Ottoman Empire.
Because of this specific dream of Erdogan, Turkey becomes very crucial. There was a time when Turkey wanted to become the member of EU, and Turkey was very westernized, very modernized. But then, despite keeping that I would say veneer of modernity and everything, at a deeper level, there always existed a very strong Islamist constituency. Erdogan, riding over that Islamist constituency, came to power. Now he has that, ambition of, creating a very proto or like, some kind of a Turkic empire or Ottoman caliphate back, bringing back into shape. For that, he, tries to play all these strategic games, the Turkish state. India is a very suitable and a very comfortable place for them, because there are historical connections. India has historical connections with Turkey. These Mughals and all the rulers. The Turkic Sultan came to India. Besides that, India does not subscribe to Wahhabi ideology. So Saudi, proselytization and Saudi, I would say religious missionary work in India will not find much support in places like North India, Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, because there is a huge Bareli constituency. Barelvi, there is a huge segment of Barelvi Muslims. Turkey doesn't, adhere to those very strict and rigid sectarian differences. They don't even, intend to, capitalize on them. I mean, they are mostly working on creating a very strong Islamic identity, and and for that reason, they are not focusing on the sectarian differences like between Shia and Sunni or between the various Islamic groups. They said that, well, we have to create a global Islamic ummah, and so, just everyone is welcome. So that's why they have a very, I would say, fertile situation here. In Pakistan also, they have a very stronger relationship, historical relationship, so they are loved. In West Asia, in Arab land, Erdogan knows that their claim to that whole caliphate thing will be challenged. It will never be accepted by the Arabs. So that's again one reason why they look at South Asia in a very positive manner. So now coming to the infiltration, coming to their involvement. See, Turkey is very active in the Kashmir region. So they have supported Kashmir in various multilateral forums, on various occasions. After the abrogation of Article 370, Turkey emerged as the biggest supporter of Pakistan. There's this organization called TRT World, Turkish Radio and Television. That's the official broadcasting the service of Turkey. You'll find that a large number of Kashmiris, almost about 300, they're working there, and that includes the sons and daughters of many separatist leaders. Several Kashmiri journalists, or the separatist activists, they were very active in Turkey. They were involved with a lot of people. In fact, even when they tried to escape India after the abrogation of Article 370, their first destination was Turkey. Besides that, Turkey is also active in other parts of India. They have a reach out to various clerics, and the religious leaders, the community, from influential people of the Muslim community. That includes the business people, artists, in various parts of India. So, well, as far regarding their involvement in terrorist activities, I will not be able to make any concrete statement, because that's the job of the intelligence and security agencies. But yes, their outreach and their I would say spreading out in India, their penetration among the Muslim community, among the religious scholars, that's quite intense, and that has actually a strong potential, to derail your security. Even Zakir Naik, the fellow who is absconding, he was a hero in Turkey. He visited Turkey several times. The leader of the Jamaat-e Islami Kashmir POK region, he visited Turkey several times, and they had discussions. So these ties are quite strong.
So what is this PFI connection?
PFI, yes, PFI is again
Popular
PFI,
Front of India.
PFI has linkages. I mean, they have the leaders have visited Turkey, and they have also linkages with the Turkish ministry, that Diyanet it's called, I think, religious ministry. So the people have been regularly visiting these countries. Besides that, PFI believes in the Wahhabi Salafi ideology. So most of the people who joined ISIS in India, they had the PFI background.
And let's not forget that Turkey is the main backer of ISIS in the in West Asia or Middle East, whatever you call it.
They were buying the ISIS oil, and they were all the people who were joining ISIS coming from Europe. Their first landing ground was Turkey, and from there, they were.
They had created some kind of a corridor where nobody was checked, and ISIS was kind of spreading.
Even now, in this whole Syria, this HTS Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they got a major backing, major support from Turkey.
So, Abhinav, last question. What exactly are we looking at? What exactly should our establishment, security establishment and all do? This is what you painted was a really scary picture, by the way.
Well, I must say that, I guess, our security establishment, our diplomatic establishment, they need to get their priorities right. And, see, I'm not in the system. I'm an academic, I can take a more objective stand. So I must say that India's biggest challenge, security challenge, comes from the extremist Islam. See, China is a territorial challenge. I agree, okay. But with China, we have boundary problems, and at the maximum, China, will be creating disturbances in the boundary areas, or maybe some kind of, cyber challenges or. But China is not going to come and occupy Bangalore, Udaipur, Dungarpur, or Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram, or Chennai. They are not interested in that. Now coming to Pakistan. Pakistan is just a manifestation of extremist Islam. Pakistan as an idea, Pakistan is just an idea. It's a manifestation. The basic genesis, the root, the idea behind Pakistan is the extremist Islam, and that continues to be India's major security challenge for the last 1200 years. And unfortunately, after India's independence, that challenge has not weakened, it has become stronger. Even in the last 12 years, after the Modi government came to power, I guess still, there is some degree of understanding, regarding the seriousness of this challenge. But then I still feel that, government needs to do a lot. Our preparations, our policies are not very clear. I'll just give you one situation, one example. Okay, well, you have these highly trained Pakistani SSG commandos infiltrating Kashmir from the Samba Kathua region as terrorists. Okay, and they are so well trained that even from a distance of 100 feet, they can take a headshot and they can kill a para commando. A para
So
unit
you think
commando.
these are actually Pakistan military?
Some of them are SSG commandos.
Okay.
So imagine, if they move from that region to a small district in UP, let's say, a Kanpur or Jhansi, okay, is it difficult, to reach there? Once you get into the Indian border, it's not that difficult, okay. If they reach a place like Jalore or Savai Madhopur in Rajasthan, okay, and if they are able to occupy, like, the police control room or the city center point, with some good weapon, can you imagine for how long they'll be able to engage the local police? Because the local police has no exposure, the intelligence has no exposure, they are not trained. That person will, will kill at least 100 to 200 people,
You're
before
talking
dying
about
himself.
basically Hamas-like situation, what happened to
Yes,
Israel.
yes. And besides that, imagine a scenario where you have massive communal violence. See,
Yes.
imagine a situation where, suppose government comes out with a Waqf, bill or Waqf resolution, something like that, okay, After that, there is a very well orchestrated, centrally, internationally planned, massive all India protest agitation, okay, and, given that, but well, our central agencies are still, they are better and they have better exposure, but in places like MP, UP, Rajasthan, the state intelligence bodies, they don't have a sufficient exposure to the activities and the workings of the minds of these extremist Islamist groups. So imagine, against any of the government resolutions, suppose there is some kind of a well orchestrated national level movement, okay, in various parts of the country, and in the initial phase of the attack, they go and, some kind of a major violence takes place. If they kill a large number of the people from the other community, after and simultaneously, if that is accompanied by terrorist attacks, because if the people who are infiltrating as terrorist cadres, they can act as catalysts in such a situation, they can coordinate such things. So if these two things happen in various parts of the country simultaneously, complementing each other, what would be the government response? As a democratic country, you cannot go and fire upon the civilian protesters.
No, you can't. Absolutely. I mean, you're
And
absolutely
besides that,
right.
the population part, okay, well, no, we didn't have a census in 2021. I don't know what's the population composition right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if the population goes on to, increasing like this, okay, well, when I mention this, I'm not making a rant against any specific religion. I'm talking
Yeah.
purely as a security expert or as an academic. Okay, let's say, imagine by 2050, 2060. Okay, you have an overwhelming, segment of the population, who comes under the influence of radical preachers, or extremist Maulanas. And if they decide to vote as per the guidelines given by those Maulanas or those preachers, and if they are able to send at least 100, 60, 70 MPs in your upper house, in your lower house, then even they don't need any terrorism. Just by some legal methods or by the parliamentary methods,
Democratically,
you can bring in Sharia. And in Bangladesh, you have seen after years of Hasina's so-called democratic rule or whatever, the Hindus are facing such persecution. Despite the fact that India played a major role in the independence of Bangladesh, there is no sense of gratitude, there is no love left for India, and they are killing the Hindu population every day. Imagine, if you have such a population composition happening in various parts of India, what do you expect? Like you have, see, there are not enough evidences. You look at Kashmir. In Kashmir, in 1990, the Kashmiri Pandits were brutally massacred, killed, and thrown out of the valley. Why? To change the demography.
Yep.
And that's what's happening in the Poonch Rajouri region right now.
Well, Abhinav, thank you for coming to the show and scaring me out of my wits. And I'm certain the viewers will also. But yeah, I think seriously, the Indian government needs to. I hope they were aware of the situation. I hope some action is being
I think
taken.
that, see, government needs to take the security domain very seriously, and a very typical mundane bureaucratic approach cannot help you address the situation. You need a very long-term, holistic 20-year roadmap to address the situation. For that, you need experts. You need to go beyond your bureaucratic formalities and rigidities. You need to come out of that
Absolutely.
hubristic mindset that, well, we know it all, and we will just take care of everything. It doesn't work like that. I mean, you just imagine that incident. That fellow in my city, Udaipur, he slaughtered a man in that ISIS style beheading.
Yes.
So that guy, that the man who killed Kanhaiya
The
Kumar.
tailor,
Yes,
the
yes.
tailor.
So that guy, let me tell you, the man who slaughtered that tailor, he was not trained in Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed camps. He was a localite, a very nice localite, very well mingled with the local population. He was known to a lot of
He
people.
suddenly showed his ISIS face.
Because of purely religious reasons, I
Brain
mean, yeah,
totally
brain.
washed.
And see, he had a family, so definitely there are people. It was discovered after that incident that people were going from that part of the country to Pakistan, and they were getting some mild religious preaching and training, and there were encrypted WhatsApp groups. Unfortunately, my state police had absolutely no idea how those groups were functioning and all, and they were clueless about what this Barelvi, Devbandi, radical, stuff which is going on these channels. But then the most shocking part is that he was a local Muslim, born and brought up in that local composite culture, which you call Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, and then he could dare to do such thing. And again, once again, look at the fact that he has a family. He did not even care, or even think twice, think once about the future of his family, that what would happen to his family if he is arrested or if he is killed. So he could take such a brave, such an audacious, bold step, just out of religious motivation. That means the problem is very serious. It's
So basically,
dangerous.
viewers, we can thank you again, Abhinav. And basically, our problem, I think, from whatever I can deduce, is that our problem is that we are reactive.
Yeah.
We react to a situation. We are not proactive. We are not trying to be. We are too happy being what we are.
Yes, yeah.
So I hope the government is doing something about it. I hope our intelligence establishment is aware of what is going on, because what we are looking at the future, it is not happy.
Yes.
Thank you, Abhinav, once again for coming to the show. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.